Welcome to your awakening journey. Today's destinations include higher consciousness and actualized potential. If all ascenders could now please be seated in a comfortable meditative posture, we are about to ascend. You are now arriving at your host, Bryan Henry.
What is up, Ascenders? You are now listening to the Awaken podcast, brought to you by TogetherWeAscend.com. My name is Bryan Henry, and if you are tuning back in with us, I want to welcome you back. And perhaps if this is your first time listening to the show, welcome. I do hope you enjoyed the episode, and if you do and this content resonates with you, I do think you'd like to join us at the Ascenders Facebook community. That group has become an amazing energy. I think only in the last few weeks really have I seen it start to shift into the sort of place and energy that I know it can be. The group's been going on for maybe a year and a half now, but again, in these last few weeks, it really started to take off into being this amazing place where people are connecting with one another, sharing, supporting one another. And it's just been absolutely amazing to see the Ascenders connect with one another in this way and just be there for each other. So again, if the content here resonates with you, I definitely do think what's going on in that community will as well. And if you're interested in checking us out, you can find us at togetherweascend.com/community. But anyways, I do want to jump into what we got going on in this episode. And I am pretty excited to bring this one to you guys because my guest today is someone that I've really grown to respect. And I don't know if she knows this, but I've started to actually look up to her as well. In these last few months of seeing her on social media, seeing her content, getting to know who she is and what she's about, it's been really inspiring for me because if you take a look at all that she's currently doing and the amazing work that she's doing, it's really reflective of the kind of things that I aspire to be doing. She's hosting transformative retreats. She's doing her one-on-one work. She's offering intuitive guidance, and she has courses out as well. And the quality of her content is absolutely amazing. As you guys hear her speak in this episode, you'll soon realize that there's a profound wisdom to this woman. She's a visionary mentor who helps visionary leaders step into their soul purpose and into their power. And she's a great person to be doing this work because she just radiates the energy of someone who has done this for themselves. So in this episode, we get into the topic of just being your truth, finding alignment with your truth and who you are, and becoming a sovereign being, which you'll soon find out what that means. So I am not going to keep you guys waiting any longer. This is my interview with the visionary mentor, intuitive advisor, and author of the Empath Experience, Sydney Campos. And we are on. Sydney, welcome to Awaken. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Bryan. It's great to meet you and to be here with you.
Likewise. Cool. Okay, so I actually want to start with something a little bit more fun. Not to say that everything we're going to get into is going to be fun, but let's actually jump in with this. I know you're living in Bali, correct?
I'm going to be living there again in December. I
Okay,
spent most of 2017 there. Right now I'm in Los Angeles.
Okay, so but you is Bali sort of home for you?
Yes.
How long did you spend there?
I spent most of last year there, so like 8 months. And then this year, well, I was there even a few months this past year for a retreat that I host there over New Year's. And then I'll be heading back in December for probably 5 or 6 months.
Nice. Okay, so one of the once I started looking into it, it occurred to me one of the reasons why this conversation was in alignment is I'm moving to Bali for the first time in 2 months.
Well, that's perfect. I'll see you there.
There you go. So you're going to be there for December. So I'll be around.
Wonderful.
What do you have to say to someone that is going to be visiting Bali for the first time?
Oh, well, it's just such a beautiful place. It's called Island of the Gods, and it truly is paradise. It's the first place I landed in all my travels. It's the first place I landed and felt like I was home and really felt this like part of me be fully retrieved, like part of my soul was retrieved, and I had a lot of just felt like extremely activated in my intuition and felt so nourished by the energy there, by the beautiful jungle, and really by the consciousness. It's, the consciousness there is very light, I would say, and is really filled with deep devotion to spirituality and harmony, and just feels really, really resonant for me.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's one of the things. Actually, interestingly enough, I started to feel called towards the country before I knew anything about it. And
Mhm.
once I started to look into it, and I started to hear like there's that one of my buddies was telling me like, yeah, this is definitely going to be your vibe. Um, it,
Mm.
it it all just kind of made sense to me. So
Mhm.
it's what what would you say is how would you describe the difference between where did you grow up? Sorry.
I grew up in parts of New England and then mostly in San Francisco, in the middle of the city.
Okay, so how would you describe the difference between the feeling of the energy? Let's say just without talking anything about the physical,
Hmm.
without talking about the actual
Mhm.
things you're seeing and doing in Bali. What's the
Mhm.
difference in the energy of just being there?
Cool question. I can feel it right now, and it feels incredibly peaceful. It feels really vibrant, like colorful. I experience that energy almost as like a rainbow, if that could be a feeling, like harmony, and also like really powerful, amplified, like heightened. It's very magnetic. There's like a heightened sense of manifestation. The energy is like, I would, not dense in like a negative sense, as we may use density to describe like heaviness or carrying certain psychic or karmic weight, and yet there's like a density or yeah, like a sturdiness even to the energy there, in which it's like you think something and then it's happening a moment later or instantly. And also on that end, something else I would say, and I don't mean this in a fear-mongering way at all, but it's just something I've noticed that's happened for me and pretty much everyone I've brought to visit through retreats, and I see it reflected again and again that, the energy there, it's so amplified. It acts really as a mirror for you to see the parts of yourself that are in resistance to being in truth and in love, and that can manifest as, certain lessons coming up to be learned upon your arrival there, certain, yeah, certain things getting triggered and activated that are ready to be healed, and maybe a more accelerated pace. That's why I love
Mm.
to bring people there for healing work, because the energy is really supportive in amplifying and accelerating healing.
Wow, that sounds incredible, and you're only getting me more excited to be there in a
Yeah.
few months. So, I mean, the way that you
Mm.
describe that energy, it sounds like um, something I would like personally to see um, come into my home, or where I call
Mhm.
home right now. And I guess what I'd like to ask you is, what do you think we can do as individuals to contribute to the energy in these hustle and bustle cities, um, to kind of move into that direction? Because well, first, do you agree that that that's preferable or more enjoyable of an experience? And if we do,
Mhm.
then what can we do to shift the energy in places that maybe don't feel like that?
Oh, I love this question. Thank you. Everyone's at a different frequency. Everyone's resonating at a different level. I'm really learning that lesson right now in my own life in a big way. And for me, like Bali is just so resonant. And yes, of course, I desire more of that calm, peace, harmonious, supercharged energy to be everywhere. Of course. Of
I don't
course,
know
I
if you
want
saw
that.
that. I have to point it out, but on your webcam there, when you said supercharged, I think it was
Damn
but you forgot everything.
it.
Just I had to point that out.
Yeah, that's so
Continue.
great. Of course. Yeah, and of course I'd love to have that feeling everywhere. I mean, first and foremost, I'd love to cultivate that energy within myself so that I'm feeling that. And I do too. I definitely acknowledge that I have been able to cultivate, really beautiful energy within me, and I can bring that wherever I go. And I feed off of my environment, you know, like I've been in LA for the last year and it's been really beautiful here, and I live right on the ocean, and it's, you know, there's great tribe here, and it can feel really like the hustle, and there's a lot of the creative drive, you know, cultural production going on here, which, you know, is beautiful, and the shadow of it can often be, I'm not enough. I'm not
Mm.
doing enough. I'm not seen. I'm not important. I'm not there yet. You know,
Do
that
I know
whole
that
like
feeling?
worry. Yeah, the whole worry, anxiety, unworthiness, comparison, superficiality, just all the shadows are super loud here, are very loud, even in the conscious community, right? And it's I mean, I even laugh at using that word, I guess, the conscious community,
Mm-hmm.
because we're all conscious beings alive here on earth.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do we bring more of that harmonious, calming, peaceful energy that I myself really prefer to experience? I commit as much as possible to just being a channel of that frequency, and I bring that with me wherever I go, as long as I'm taking care of myself. And sometimes, I'll be honest, you know, on a day like today, um, I probably could have taken care of myself a little bit better to hold that frequency more strongly for myself and for just every environment that I go into.
Are you open to sharing what you've been going through today?
Totally, yeah. I know it's by sharing our, you know, personal experience that we heal. I certainly heal the most through just sharing. That's why I make live streams like all day long. It's like, oh, you know, and I feel in this moment, you know, I'm so happy to be speaking with you, and I'm just aware of having a heavy heart. I feel really heavy hearted today. I feel really sensitive. I feel a little bit of like, I was feeling earlier, especially like some grief. Um, I posted something on Facebook the other day, and all these people took it way out of context. A lot of people that I don't even know, that I'm not
What
in
was the
resonance
post
with.
about?
Power, which is one of my favorite things to teach. And, you know, it's something that I'm teaching in my course that I'm running right now called the Divinity Codes. And the statement that came through to share, which is something that had come up in multiple conversations, had been reflected back to me in some of my own lessons. You know, the statement was, no one can take your power away from you without your conscious or unconscious agreement to give it away. You're
Hmm.
the only one that can ever control whether or not your power is given away.
I want to hear how someone can misreceive that.
You can look at a whole bunch of ways. I was frankly astonished, you know, it was really astonishing. And it's a really great lesson for me, because one of my deepest wounds in this lifetime and in many lifetimes that I've been called to transcend is people pleasing and wanting to feel understood, because one of my deepest fears has been being alone and being excommunicated, even to the point of being killed for speaking my truth.
Hmm.
And so you could imagine that, you know, people not
Sorry, just to clear that up,
just
is that it's a fear of that, or you
fear,
okay.
fear, yeah. And we can talk about past lives and
Okay,
whatnot,
so
but it's a fear.
is that what you're saying, that you've had, or you've come
Yes,
to
yes,
believe
yes,
that
yes.
that's happened in the past, in a past
Oh,
life?
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I know that it has happened. So, anyways, the post triggered all sorts of different responses. Again, largely from people I don't know at all, who I have no idea how they even found this post. It was bizarre. And it was really an energy of, regardless of what they said, the energy of it, of what they were conveying, was really angry. I would say wounded. I would say like victimizing of
Mm-hmm.
themselves, and separatist, like existing in separation consciousness, and took really my words completely out of context. But in hindsight, I can see how they would interpret what I said through their frequency, through their lens of awareness, you know,
Right.
from which they currently stand. And we're not in resonance, and there's a reason we're not really connected. And so, but in the moment where I first read those, you know, it was painful. It
Mm-hmm.
hit those old wounds. And I am grateful that it, you know, the pain lasted for a very short amount of time compared to maybe what would have happened in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to be empowered, you know, kind of shortly thereafter, and see the lessons and see the deeper meaning and kind of see some of what I just shared with you. And
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, yeah, so I'm just processing that still. And I'm feeling really grateful that a big lesson that came through today that a friend mentioned to me is that, you know, this is such a blessing, because it's affirming that there are so many people that are never going to understand me. And it's not my job to convince anybody, because there's a whole bunch of other people that are ready, that are curious, that do resonate, that want to be activated into speaking their truth, that want to be empowered, that want to operate in a consciousness of love. And it's really disempowering for me to waste any of my energy justifying myself or explaining or rationalizing to people that fundamentally will never understand.
Mm-hmm. So I love that this is coming through, because it's exactly what I'm going through. And I had a sense that this conversation would kind of go in this direction. So, I don't think I brought this up before we started the recording, but the intention when I, in the interviews and the conversations that I'm having on the show these days, now that I've restarted the podcast, rebooted the podcast, is it's very, very open. It's very, let's jump in and see where we're guided to move into. So know that going into this conversation, I have really no idea where we're going to take it, but I do see now that this what you just mentioned, it's something that I want to talk a little bit more about, because it's something that I'm just started to have to deal with on a whole different level, being what it is that I just shared yesterday. For those of the listeners that may have not yet seen it, I posted a video on both YouTube and Facebook talking about an experience. You don't know this, Sydney, so this is for you. But I posted a video on YouTube and Facebook that was me telling a story about coming into meeting a higher dimensional being, and extraterrestrial. And I still feel in a resistance to using that word, because I know the connotation that many perceive it with. But this is the first time I've really had an experience with this kind of being, though I've had experiences in the past with let's call it spiritual entities and things outside of the common understanding of our world. And this was the first time that I've shared publicly a story like this. And I mean, just to give you I'll send you the link later, but just to give you a quick idea, because I know you just mentioned to me that you are familiar with the conversation of extraterrestrials. But I essentially felt a calling towards the Arcturians. Are you familiar?
Of course.
Okay, so I felt the calling towards the Arcturians. That led me down a path of researching them a little bit, and I just started feeling more and more that this is on my path. I started trusting how I was feeling more and more. And this just was over a course of maybe a day max, a day or two. I was doing this, just about 24 hours of feeling this way. And I started speaking to my girlfriend about it, and I told her, I know this sounds crazy. I told her what I was going through, how I was feeling, and I said, I know this sounds crazy. I can't believe I'm actually saying these things right now. I've never considered before that I'm here to help and assist an extraterrestrial race, but this is how I feel. Anyways, after saying those words, I looked up at my girlfriend and I saw something different. And she asked me the question, or no, she didn't ask me the question. She said to me, "You're ready." And I said, "Who are you?" My immediate reaction was to ask, "Who are you?"
Yes.
And her response, you're going to love this. Her response was, "I am you." I asked again, "Who are you? I need to know who are you, because something of this sort kind of has happened before. Not the exact same, but has happened." And so I was checking in to see if this is my girlfriend just talking to me, or if something different's happening. And her response, "I am you." And because at that point,
Mm-hmm.
I knew immediately that I was conversing with the Arcturians.
Yes.
So, anyways, to get to where I want to get to here, just so I needed to catch you up with this story, but
Thank you for telling me that. I have to share with you, as you were saying that, I just felt the transmission. I felt a full energetic transmission through my body. So I always take that as an affirmation that we're tapping in with a really aligned frequency that we're meant to hold here on the planet. It feels really beautiful. Thank you.
thank you. Um, yeah, so after posting that video's been up for about 24 hours now. I've had 3 friends and family members message me expressing concerns, expressing worries, and nothing I didn't expect. Um, People are concerned and worried that I've lost it,
Mm-hmm.
and I think you would agree that our conversation right now probably isn't for them. It isn't for those that
Mm-hmm.
aren't yet at a frequency where they can understand this. And I'm accepting more and more that I'm not here to convince anybody of anything. I'm not here to teach anybody anything. I'm here to be my truth and be unconditional love. And so
Mm-hmm.
I guess where I'll bring it to you is how do we hold on to that truth? How do we stay in that truth regardless of what other influences, factors, and energies around us may be present?
Wow. I just have to acknowledge, I mean, you kind of already did, but it's so divine, right? We're in such divine alignment with our mission, with our purpose, with our messages, and we're able to speak and share about our both of our experiences, which are really just a reflection of one another in this moment. It's so powerful. I'm just really feeling the divine working through both of us, and I'm so grateful. And wow. Something that comes up, I guess, for me, and maybe it's not a direct answer to your question. However, I feel like it's implied, it's important to mention. And it actually alludes to what I just mentioned earlier about a fear of being killed, a fear of death, being left alone, being excommunicated from the tribe. I have experienced myself both through, well, in many different capacities, but I would say in my own journeying in the Akashic Records, which is something I share with clients in readings and also something that I just practice in my own healing journey for the last couple of years. I've tuned in with past lives, many past lives that I've spent as a witch, as a healer, as a shaman, all the different words that we would give, as a guide, all the different mystical, magical words that we would assign. To our mystical human selves,
Hmm.
and many of those lifetimes have involved being murdered for being powerful, for being in truth, for being a wisdom keeper, for being outwardly opposed to the status quo of oppression, of slavery, of violence, a lot of the paradigms which we're currently seeing being dismantled right now. And this is a wound that not only I have experienced, but that I believe that actually all human beings at some level, whether unconsciously or consciously, are also aware of having experienced. This is a collective trauma. Whether or not you yourself in a past life were murdered for being a witch that was called to speak your truth in vehement opposition to political oppression or genocide or whatever it has been through so much more ancient history than we're even aware of, right? Which
Right.
has been
Sorry to jump in
destroyed.
here.
Yeah.
I just need to know, is this does this at all connect to, or even are you familiar with the term the shattering?
No.
No? Okay. Anyways, I had to ask. Maybe we'll talk about that after,
I
but
think I
continue.
can feel into what you're referring to, the destruction of all the history of like the ancient civilizations of Atlantis and Lemuria and all the
Uh,
different
More
civilizations.
it's more about the effect that these experiences had on it. This is brand new to me too. I've barely even looked into this, but it's this idea of how the experiences that you're describing had a way of shattering
Mm.
that soul, to bring it down
Hmm.
to a frequency in which it had to
Yes.
rebuild itself.
Ah, yes, I have heard of this term. Yeah, so, simply put, without going too much more into it, we are all at some level who are alive on this planet now, tapped in with this collective trauma of disempowerment around speaking our truth and feeling safe to be connected to our inner knowing and to our divinity, and to be fully, safe in our own being to express the clear channel that we are to all sorts of other consciousness, divine consciousness. I mean, I really believe all of it is connected to source anyway, even all of these galactic entities, ETs,
Ultimately.
multidimensional beings, it's all from source. We're all connecting to the same energy. We are all made of the same energy, right? It's an energy game. So it's not, and I hesitate almost sometimes to, I think in part of my journey, when I was getting really excited about, oh my God, I'm connecting to the Palladians. I really resonate with the Palladians. I'm a Palladian starseed. Oh my God. And it felt so good. It felt like, oh my God, I have a story. I knew I'm not from planet Earth. None of us are, but I had always felt like such a deep feeling that I'm in the wrong place. Take me home. When I really resonated with the Palladian energy that I started to tap in with, I felt so good. I felt like, oh my God, I have an identity. I know where I come from. I know what I stand for. I have a family, and it felt amazing. And I've seen that maybe, I don't know if so much in myself, but perhaps even that can be used as a tool of separation, right? And talking about like the different hierarchies of the consciousness and the
Is that not
galactic energy. And
identification as well?
it's all just identification and separation, right? It can be. And so I'm aware of that and conscious of that in this conversation. And that can be triggering for people to feel unsafe, to feel insecure, to feel like, wait, are you okay? Like your family asking, are you okay? I'm concerned. They're just coming from a place of love, but perhaps also operating from a place of not being able to fully meet you in that consciousness, in which they also have that capacity to connect with higher dimensional beings and also just higher dimensional aspects of themselves, which is maybe what you were actually experiencing with your girlfriend. That's what I experience when I'm in connection with, and I'm working in the Akashic Records. I have felt at times the presence of what at first felt like another entity. Like, wait a second, am I channeling another entity that's giving this reading, or what? And I worked with one of my mentors to kind of dive into that and learn that, oh, this is my higher dimensional Palladian self that's coming in to support, because in my Palladian, lifetimes and in that dimension especially, I'm an expert in the Akashic Records, and no wonder this is on my soul path in this human lifetime to bring that forth. And so coming back to your question about, I think it was, how do we support ourselves first and foremost in standing in our truth, even if, especially when it feels like there's a war, or people are just going to hate us, or your family's going to disown you, or all sorts of stuff is going to happen, right? Like fear's there. What do we do? And that's definitely what I'm being, guided and expanding into even more now. And what's come up for me is, we, especially as leaders, you and I are leaders, we're, visible out there, we're sharing our stories, we're creating space for stories and truth to be told. It is so important, maybe more important than ever, that we are able to hold space for ourselves, that yes, we can have mentors and teachers and guides and higher dimensional consciousness supporting us and whatnot. But at the end of the day, how is your relationship with yourself? And are you able to be the one that's there for you when everything else seems to be falling apart? Are you able to tune in with that deeper truth within you that knows that you are love, that you are God, that you are whole, safe, and complete in this moment, fully supported and having everything that you need to thrive? And can you speak to yourself like a mother would speak to a child? For me, right? It's like, can I summon that inner loving parent that knows to nurture me, that knows to take care of me, that knows that everything's going to be okay? When that little part of me, that little child essence of me that I believe is in all of us, right? That may be operating from a wounded place, is really worried. And that requires some deep work. That's like shadow work. That's not something that I've been able to, embody overnight. It's been years. And that's something that I'm aware of in the responses, right? In the responses to that post that I told you about, and people really like criticizing, really like bullying, being very angry. I know that that's their inner child speaking from a very wounded place of not feeling seen, of not feeling acknowledged, of not feeling powerful ever. And, just waiting for a place to vent, just waiting. And there's a lot of that going on in our society. We're not really supported, especially in America, not supported in emotional intelligence and energetic mastery and, learning to love ourselves. In fact, if everyone really loved themselves and had like a deep relationship with themselves so that they could hold space for themselves to own their truth and feel fully safe and sovereign, would we have capitalism?
It's an interesting question. If we fully loved ourselves, would we have capitalism? Well, if we fully loved ourselves, that would open way to the awareness that all is self. And I do believe that movement towards that would mean everyone coming together to serve a collective goal.
Mm.
And so, does capitalism fit into that picture? Maybe not.
I think capitalism is inherently rooted in duality and the illusions of separation and the illusions
Mhm.
of lack and fear,
That's why.
which are all illusions.
Mhm. So, seeing through that illusions, what does I'm trying to consider who's this for right now? Who at what stage in someone's I don't like to say stage because then it implies a linear path, which it never is. But um,
Mm, good point.
there's a few different ways that we can take this, and what I think I need to consider is at what point or in what place is the person that this is for. Um, I think we need to look at the person that is on on an intellectual level.
Hmm.
They're aware, but there's that, as we all of course experience, the pulling into duality, that um pull back into these actually, there's a word that you mentioned that I think I want to re-bring up, and it's sovereignty. That
Hmm.
word, actually, I'm not too familiar with it. Do you mind speaking to that a little bit?
Sure. Sovereignty for me, well, let's see, there's like probably the dictionary definition, but for me, I would explain that as fully contained in your energy, whole and complete, completely integrated in your masculine and feminine, really divine union, embodied, operating at your optimal energetic capacity, in total truth, in total integrity, in total flow, ease, and magnetism. And really, I mean, that's many different ways of explaining it, I would say, but sovereign is like another word for like divinity and independence, but at once in that independence also interdependent, so not dependent, which we only see in a dualistic relationship, right? I'm dependent on you for external validation, I'm dependent on you to source my power, I'm inherently not enough, so I'm dependent on something else to complete me.
Hmm.
Sovereign is I'm completely independent, self-sufficient, self-sustaining. In and of myself, I am enough, I am worthy, I am loved. And in that place of sovereignty, I'm able to be truly interdependent, equal, reciprocal, mutually beneficial with
Hmm.
all other beings that I choose to engage with.
Interesting. That's powerful stuff. That beautiful definition. Um,
Hmm.
Before you go into that a little bit more deeply, you did something when I asked you that question, and I want you to speak to why you did it, and um, how you can bring into. Actually, let me just ask the question. Before you got into it, you took a deep breath, you closed your eyes, and sat there for a few seconds before you answered my question. What is that?
Tapping into my truth. God, feel it. And I'm not even sure what I just said to you, and but that's how you tune. Listen, we're all instruments, we're all channels, we all have access to all the information that is.
Hmm.
We're all instruments, we're all vehicles, and that's just how you start to attune your vehicle, attune your vessel, attune your instrument. Breathe deep, be calm, tune in with your heart, allow the truth that naturally wants to flow through you to flow. There's no thinking, there's no planning, there's no strategizing. It's there already.
What does that feel like? And what to the person that you may sense that has never been there
Mm.
before. Life has always been a struggle. Life will always be a struggle.
Yeah. They're like, "What are you
Describe
smoking, Sydney? What are you on? Give me some of
it's
that.
not
Give me that
real.
peel.
It's
Give
not
me
real.
that peel."
See, that's the thing. Like, I'm, I
I
feel
hear
myself
you.
going into kind of caught in the middle of wanting to serve people that they may be, in a lower vibe, but at the same time understanding that they, you can't tell them into this place. So I guess one.
No, it must be experienced, it must be learned, it must be embodied, it must be practiced. And every single person has a completely different path. There's no right way to do anything.
Never. There never is. So what does let's say, what does this how does this play out in terms of the sort of experience that you have? What does being in this place, how does that lead into a more pleasant experience?
I'm not sure I know what you mean.
So I mean, we're talking about getting to that state of alignment, right? Getting
Hmm.
being your truth, finding that state in which you feel it just flowing through you. Um,
Hmm.
I want to hear a little bit more about how you describe being there, and I want to what do you have for the person that is struggling to get there?
Hmm. Mm. I used to be one of those people in the mind all the time and really like, and yeah, and I still have a really overactive, amazing intellectual capacity that loves to be working all the time, figuring everything out. And, hmm, and I love the mind. The mind is here to help us. The mind is here to serve our deeper purpose, our soul. Align your mind to serve your soul. We talk a lot about mindset work in the professional, personal development world, and yet what does that really mean? This is like your mind is wanting to receive homework, essentially, to recalibrate it in certain ways that really allow you to access deeper states of peace and calm and allowance and trust. Ultimately, I mean, there's really no simple way I could actually answer your question. I feel like I've developed entire programs around this. Like I have a 7-week course called Alignment Activation, which literally is designed to support people in moving out of their intellectual kind of guidance system and more into their heart, more into their body, into their soul, to allow
Mhm.
for more flow and synchronicity to occur in every area of their life and more ease. And underlying that transformation is a lot of shadow work in deconditioning programs that are rooted in upholding identities and narratives really based in shame and unworthiness and distrust in your own power, in your own distrust in your own ability to take care of yourself, to give yourself what you need, to be sovereign, to be fully self sustaining, to be fully expressed in your creativity and your divinity. So, I mean, one of the most simple practices I say again and again for anybody still not quite understanding, perhaps, or maybe you understand, but you wonder, where do I start? And this works for anybody. I imagine what the world would be like if everyone did this, actually. You set a timer for once every hour and you dedicate at least a minute, if not more, every single hour. You take a deep breath, close your eyes, do a body scan, tune in with how you're feeling. Get out of your mind and start to really tune in consciously. Like, how is my body feeling right now? Can you allow yourself to be calm? Can you allow yourself to be relaxed, at ease, at rest? So often we're programmed to be in a state of nervousness, anxiousness, anxiety. We're breathing only up in our upper lungs, not even breathing at full capacity, which maintains a perpetual state of nervousness and like we're under attack. That's not very receptive. And then people wonder why it's so hard to receive and ask for help and feel loved and supported. Well, how does your body feel? And can you practice and commit in a disciplined way to allowing yourself to get into deep states of rest, you know? And then in that moment when you're restful and you scan your body, it only takes a minute. You ask yourself, this is how you train your mind to be of service to your soul. You ask through these very direct qualitative questions, which signal your intuition to come online. What do I need right now in this moment to feel supported? What would be the most nourishing thing that I could give myself right now to feel my best? What's the most nourishing experience that I could embark upon right now to feel my very best? Right? And then you put your mind to work, coming up with the fun idea and letting your intuition channel in other inspiration. And then you take immediate action with
Mm-hmm.
whatever guidance you receive. You don't delay, you immediately give yourself what you desire. And if you live your life in a sequence of moments like that, you will see things dramatically shift, and you'll inherently see a lot of your old conditioning, worry, self-doubt, disempowerment start to melt away.
Mm-hmm. How can you go wrong with that sort of approach? I don't think you can.
Try it. Well, the thing is, you can try it, and then how often I even see this in myself, I've seen this in clients even recently. It sounds great, it sounds easy, and you do it for even maybe 21 days. And at
Mm-hmm.
a certain point, your consciousness just shifts and it becomes more your default state of being to just do that anyway. You don't need a timer.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, what happens if you actually consciously practice exactly that, like for an undetermined amount of time? And so maybe I'm challenging myself to actually revisit that practice too.
Yeah, I like to hear that it's brought it back up for you. That's fun. Um, and I love these practical strategies and practices that we can implement. It's all great to talk about the mindset, or how the ways in which we think about things. But I think I want to thank you for bringing that one up, because I definitely think these specific strategies is pretty powerful, because it's almost like it holds you accountable, right? Like you and I, we can sit here and say, like, yeah, we should be in that state, we want to be in that state as much as possible, but it sometimes that reminder can be pretty powerful. It's very similar to something that I've been doing for the last few months, and it's I have a timer that goes off
Mhm.
about 10 times a day, and it prompts me to do a little bit of a mantra that I have. I've never shared this one, actually. I'll share it now, but I just say 5 words. I say present, passionate, grateful, loving, aligned. I say those 5 words.
Beautiful.
I feel them. Although sometimes I kind of push it aside. My girlfriend's probably going to be hearing this and commenting and saying, "Timer goes off and he doesn't do it." I think I need to get back into the habit of taking it a little bit more seriously, because it has a profound effect on how you feel,
Yes.
and just checking in every so often, I think,
Mhm.
is a habit that will go a long way.
Mhm.
So thank you for that.
It's huge. My pleasure. The more we can like not think, the less we can think, and the more we can feel and be in
Mm,
our bodies, the
mhm,
better, you know?
mhm,
And yeah, listen, I love talking all day. It's so much fun. I love writing and talking, talking, talking. And at the end of the day, how are you showing up? Can talk a good game. You know, I see a lot of people out there. I'm in LA. There's all these cool, conscious people everywhere. And how are you really showing up, especially when, like, in moments of challenge, in moments
mhm,
of like deep transformation? How do you show up? And are you prepared to hold space for yourself and be a loving, compassionate, divine human being, you know, in these moments where you may feel extremely challenged, you know? And I'll share with you, like, the thing I told you the story of what happened with the post and the people.
mhm,
It's amazing. Like, literally 1 year ago today, like exactly, almost just a few days off, same thing happened. A very similar thing happened. It's just such an echo, like the spiraling of time, right? Like it's just happening again. The lesson's just coming back up again. Oh, remember this? How are you going to handle it now? And it's funny, I haven't told anyone this either. Like, even to a T, I got a phone call from one of my best friends who I haven't talked to in quite a while, but I remember at around the specific time this happened last year. She happened to be in San Francisco when I was there, and she was really supporting me. And I was feeling like really, really bad, feeling really, really down about what had happened. It was like a huge ego death in terms of my
mhm,
attachment to people pleasing and that being a survival mechanism. And this friend just, of course, was like calling me yesterday and left me a message, and around the time that this all happened again. And it's just so interesting, right? Like we're being given the same lessons to see, okay, how am I showing up differently? Where can I celebrate myself for how differently I've behaved, how differently I've reacted?
mhm.
Wow, you know, it's going to happen again. until the lesson's like fully learned, it's going to happen again.
Yeah, it will. That's something that I've come to believe as well. Like it'll
Hmm.
keep resurfacing itself until you you have fully embraced the lesson that it brings. And sometimes we
Yes.
might feel like we have, but I think sometimes there's still something to be learned. And I think that's interesting that you say it happens in cycles. Um, why cycles? Like why?
I was just thinking of the spiral of time, because I noticed this, and perhaps this is maybe my own perception, but I have heard other people speak about like time being a spiral, right? Like that I'm on this, it definitely evolutionary astrology talks about the spiral of time. And,
Mhm.
even in astrological cycles, literally a year ago, this exact same thing was happening, same lessons, slightly different context,
Yeah.
very similar people involved. It's just really interesting, similar energy,
Mhm.
and I could look at other aspects of my life in which it's a similar dynamic. Like, oh, cool, same thing was happening last year at around this time. Same thing was happening last year at around this time. And it's just a fun way to think about life as a game, in which we're really being tasked with different lessons that I believe at the soul level we choose to transcend and grow through. And we have these little repetitions as reminders of how much we've grown, and to really see ourselves and how much we've accomplished, how much we've achieved, can we celebrate ourselves for how far we've come?
Mhm. Actually, you kind of took it the direction that I was thinking about taking it. So I'll keep
Hmm.
going in that direction. There's a way that I saw you phrase it in one of your I think it was one of your videos. Yeah, you phrased it. You phrased something that I speak about, but you put in a term that I haven't heard anyone put it, and I like how you put it. So, talk to me about contrasting life plans.
I forget where I first heard that term, or if I think I heard it in a reading a friend was doing with me. That was a combination of evolutionary astrology, Western astrology, Eastern astrology, human design, and gene keys. It's like everything all
What
mapped out.
gene keys?
Oh my God, you'll love the gene keys. They're so cool. They're a facet of human design. They're actually their own body of work. They're like a whole living transmission of ways in which we can activate our dormant DNA and our
Okay, so
gifts.
this is the DNA activation.
It's a book. Well, it's a book by Richard Rudd called The Gene Keys. It's a living transmission and a meditation, and it's super deep. It's awesome.
Okay, interesting. I'll make
And
note of that.
yeah, check it
Do
out.
you feel
It's
like that's
great.
something that you feel like is in alignment for us to go into, or is it?
Well,
it
sure, but I wanted to answer your question about
Please do.
contrasting life
Please do.
plans. So I heard
Yeah.
about that in that reading with my friend as I was seeking some insight about some things I already kind of knew to be true, but it's always helpful to get readings and get affirmation about those deeper truths. And my friend mentioned that to me in the reading, like she mentioned that terminology, because she also explained this thing I'm not going to be able to explain right now, but just something about my orientation in terms of human design. Really, like at a simple level, I could explain that I have a kind of constitution energetically
Mhm.
that it felt really fun to receive this from her. She was like, "Yeah, I most people with this kind of a makeup in terms of your left brain, right brain, like the way you see the world, with the way your spirit is here to kind of approach the world, it's incredibly confusing. And there's a lot of people that, go crazy with that kind of contrast,
Right.
contrast and perception, like in the way that my brain is maybe oriented or my mind is oriented to understanding the world, which is in a very mystical, magical, multidimensional sense, and the way in which my life plan is set up, which is actually to be very third dimensional and material and grounded. It's just a big contrast. And so she, I think, used that term in that reading, and it really landed with me like, oh, yeah, I get that. My soul chose this very contrasting life plan, that my essence is joy, multidimensionality, love, source, consciousness. And yet my soul chose to have this very contrasting life plan of, I mean, wow, just like very third dimensional challenges, especially related to money, to being in a body, to being geographically tied to a specific location, to being in gender binary, all these different dynamics. There's many, and those are all have set up the perfect lessons for me to learn and come into mastery around that which I value most.
Interesting. So you're saying that those are the you find that those are the main kinds of challenges that you tend to deal with?
Those have been, yeah, like a lot of challenges involving, this is really cool to talk about this actually. This is
Mhm.
I'm just experiencing this like excitement and also kind of a challenge in expressing with words an experience I felt so deeply for so long. So I'm really appreciating the opportunity to share. Um, yeah, like a lot of the challenges in this lifetime have certainly revolved around like a fundamental, it's almost like it manifests as an inability at first. Feels like an inability that I have to understand very third dimensional things like
Mhm.
money,
Mhm.
like sex, like body, like gender, like race, oppression, all these different like third dimensional control aspects of control. I felt extremely confused about my whole life. When I was a little kid, even before I understood any of this stuff, I felt energetically very confused. Like, why are people suffering? Why are people unhappy? Why are people sad? Why are there homeless people on the street? Like I really didn't understand, and I felt like something was wrong with me because was I the only person that was seeing the world this way? Because I'm oriented to see things in a very different way, which
Mhm.
some people have even judged as, even recently, I've felt judged as being naive or overly naive and out of touch, or like someone even in that post said I was like spiritually bypassing, and I don't know, all this stuff. It doesn't matter, but I'm just trying to explain to you like this underlying feeling I've had because of my orientation energetically has been like one of confusion, which will immediately manifest as a sense of like being incapable of understanding, or I'm disempowered in being able to attain the same success, or no wonder I've spent my whole life wondering like, will I fit in? Am I a part of? Do people understand me? Do people like me? All that stuff, because I felt so inherently different. And now I feel very empowered in that perspective and difference because I understand that that's what I'm really called to share in terms of activating new ideas,
Mhm.
new creativity, new ways of being, new innovation. I see a lot of things that no one else can see.
Actually, that sentence right there is the perfect segue into the question. Not question. I'm gonna give you open space to take this and go. Um, Akashic Records and channeling. I don't
Hmm.
think I haven't had anyone speak to those topics yet on the show. What are they?
The Akashic Records are the energetic imprint of all of the information and all of the universes that have ever been.
Okay. And you
So
say,
it's all, and you could even think of it as a library of all of the souls and all of the lifetimes that have ever been. And we all have access to this information. It's just energy. And it's something that I studied and learned in other lifetimes, and then was called to pretty synchronistically in this lifetime. And um, we're all channels. We all have the ability to channel, and certain people are perhaps even more attuned to be very receptive to channeling, such as myself. And um, but we all have the capacity. We all have the gift of like channeling, and I actually believe we're all channeling anyway, whether or not we're conscious of it or not. What are we other than like, interpreting higher consciousness through anything that we create or speak?
all right, it's that it's that idea that this is me, this is my thoughts, that I think that gap in between realizing that this is not this, it's all you, but I think the best way to put it is that you can limit yourself, you can cut yourself off from being that opening, being that channel. So you do work that involves the Akashic records, involves channeling. um what does that look like? Who do you serve when you do those sort of things, and what comes from that?
Well, I'm always channeling all the time. And then that also is maybe more contained within like individual readings where I'll support individual clients who are like broadly ranging, super diverse, from celebrities to entrepreneurs to healers, teachers. I mean, anyone that feels a resonance with me and is ready to receive whatever message I can offer them,
Mm-hmm.
which is essentially always a reflection of their own soul truth. How the sessions work is we're usually in Zoom like this. We do a 75-minute session in which I guide us through a brief meditation, and then I open up the records through saying a prayer, which can feel like an immense energy activation, which people usually feel as an immense sense of heart opening. And then I'll start channeling whatever questions the client may have. I give them an assignment to come up with 10 questions, qualitative questions that are how, when, why, instead of yes or no answers.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll usually almost always channel answers immediately to the questions that they had prepared without them needing to ask.
Really?
And what can come in Akashic Records, depending on the person, because everyone's so unique and multifaceted, can be an array of different spirit guides, angels, ascended masters, teachers, loved ones who have since passed on, higher dimensional aspects of self, um, all sorts of different beings, whatever is in the highest spirit of unconditional love and service to supporting that soul's mission on this planet now. And what can also come up if relevant is insight into past lives that may have set into motion unconscious programs that are currently operating as kind of blocks or resistances in the person's path in towards feeling more loved, powerful, present, whatever it is that they want.
Mm-hmm.
And it's beautiful. It's a healing energy transmission as much as it is this like kind of intellectual reprogramming as well. And I'm amazed at how one thing I'd like to share is I'm amazed, I'm in awe of how many guides and how much support every single one of us has, whether you're aware of it or not. We are all being supported by infinite beings and multidimensional, higher dimensional beings, higher dimensional aspects of ourselves, angels. Jesus is like up in everyone's reading. It's amazing. And how amazing is it to feel like we're ever alone? So I just want to offer that for maybe people listening in and just to consider that you are so supported. And what is it like when you actually ask for help, when you actually tap in with the support that you have available to you in every moment?
How do we connect to that?
Meditate and do the practice that I shared with you, which is tuning into your heart and asking what you desire most and how do you give that to yourself now. And practice every single day cultivating a state of deep relaxation and rest. And that may not mean for every single person sit down for 20 minutes and meditate twice a day, although that's certainly what I needed to do at the beginning to really learn to quiet my mind. I needed that discipline. And yet some people also resonate more with active meditation and moving, but what are you doing every day that's a committed practice that helps you feel very connected to yourself, that helps you to feel rested, relaxed, calm, receptive. When you are at ease is when you are most receptive for the messages that are meant for you to come in.
How do you discern between um, the that which is your intuition, the messages that are in greatest alignment, and actually let's bring this specifically to the question of what is my purpose, because I know that's something that you work with people to do, align with their purpose and
Mhm.
move into it. um, what what's the approach after the relaxation, after the settling in, after the meditation? um, where do we go from there? How do we
Mhm. Mhm.
feel that?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of different ways. Like there's as many different ways of intuition being expressed as there are people on the planet. We're only scratching the surface of what we even understand to be like our full capacity of intuitive expression. I talk a lot about ways to channel and open up your intuition in my book, The Empath Experience, What to Do When You Feel Everything. That's actually a large part of the message is about opening up your intuition, activating your sensitivity in a really empowered way and learning to discern. what is the truth and what is the message that you're receiving, and what's the best way to access that, whether it's through automatic writing, asking questions and then writing your answer through your intuition, whether it's through meditating, asking a question and really listening and practicing. I find, and certainly this has been the case for me, it's like it's easier than you think. The hard part is letting go of the judgment that will come in to say, that's not real. Is that real? That sounds silly. Like when I started doing readings with people, that was very present. Like I would receive the message, I would receive the information, I would feel it as coming from somewhere else other than from within me. It's clearly, I actually experience when I channel, it's like the energy is like coming in from like a different, like it's like the side of my ear or something will be really activated, or through my crown. It's like not coming from within me necessarily. It's like I'm transmitting it from like through me.
Right.
And at first when I started doing readings with people, I remember like hearing that judgment really loud, like, oh, you can't say that. That sounds silly, or like, that's not cool enough, or that's not going to be important enough. And every time I would just practice letting that go and saying exactly what I sensed was meant to come through, such as like, and I would even say like, I don't, I'm just seeing a red car. I'm seeing a red car in front of a white picket fence in a brown house. And part of me would feel like, is this random? Is this made up? Like again, the challenge in the channeling is just trusting yourself, trusting your truth, trusting yourself, and not judging if it's good enough, like powerful enough. And every time, like the silliest little thing that I would think is like insignificant is always connected to one of the most powerful insights that I could have possibly delivered to someone. It's like every single time.
Actually reminds me of something else that I heard you say in your content. It's kind of, I see a connection between the two. It's that you're not responsible for the effect of I think what you were saying was specifically like you're not responsible. I was talking about how many people connect to what it is that you say. You were saying you're not responsible for the quantity of the people that you resonate with. You're not responsible for the effect. You're only responsible for trusting yourself and being your truth. And so it's I see the connection between that. It's about letting go of attachment to it coming out a certain way, and trusting how you feel. And I guess that comes back to pleasure and those good feelings, right? Doing that which feels good. And I mean, I feel like every single one of my interviews, it'll always come back to that same very simple.
Why else are we alive? Why else are we alive other than to follow our desires and see what we're truly capable of bringing into manifestation through those desires?
Let yourself feel good.
You're here to feel good. We are here to feel incredible.
Tell them one more time.
We are here to feel extraordinary. We're here to feel amazing, so alive, so turned on, totally radiate, like radiant light. That's what we're here for.
That's the message. Sydney, I think that's the perfect note to end this conversation off on. I want to thank you for your time, but before you go, of course, let my audience know, let our audience know where they can find you, what you got going on. You mentioned the retreat. Give a little bit more details about that. Where do you want the ascenders to go after hearing this conversation?
Thank you so much for the beautiful container. I'm so grateful to share. And you can stay in touch with me at sydneycampos.com. Subscribe to my newsletter. Check out my podcast, Visionary Souls. It's all over the place. And all my upcoming retreat information is really promoted through my newsletter. So that's the best way to stay in touch. And I'll be creating my own membership portal coming up in January. So I'll have my own little space of like super high frequency activating content, away out of social media, and kind of a separate area, that I feel is really, we're called to create kind of new spaces in which we can feel really fully activated and fully ourselves. And I'm really excited to gather an amazing tribe in there.
Awesome. Nice. Actually, on that note, I think what I would love to do in the future maybe is, today we kind of talked about the soul work, the alignment stuff. I probably should have mentioned it, but you're absolutely crushing it with your business. From the outside looking in, you're doing some amazing things.
Thank
Um,
you.
it's when I look at it, it's a lot of what you're doing today is what I have in mind for myself for
Mhm.
my future and where I want to take it. Actually, quick question: how long have you been doing your own thing? How long have you been an entrepreneur?
Yeah. I've been in entrepreneurship for 2.5 years. And in my first year in business, I had a six-figure a year. And the second year, I had multiple six figures, and I'm just scaling up and up. And really, a core part of my message is to bring in the multidimensional consciousness and gifts that we all have available to us. And I use the Akashic Records and all of these different tools in bringing forth kind of a new paradigm of business and a new paradigm of entrepreneurship that's really marked by more authenticity, more love, higher consciousness, and creativity. That's like my highest excitement. And I really specialize in my coaching practice with supporting entrepreneurs in launching their business from the ground up, from the beginning, from the start, to create an incredible foundation upon which to build an amazingly successful vision.
That's amazing. I love it. I'm doing similar work myself, and I like that startup phase. There's a lot going on. It's
Yeah,
really exciting. Yeah. So I was
yeah.
saying maybe maybe sometime in the future we can get you back on and we can talk a little bit um, more about talk a little bit more towards the entrepreneurs, because I think there are a lot of people sitting in a space right now where they
Mm,
have this message that wants to come out. They have this this impact that they're feeling called to serve. But I think especially in the sort of space that you and I are in, um there can be those limiting beliefs that one
mm,
cannot experience abundance and make good money doing this kind of work. So you're a perfect
mhm.
example of someone that has made that possible, and
Mm,
I think that goes to show what's
mm.
capable. She threw some numbers at you guys, so again, so
I should also say too, another place to check out on my website, I have like so many master classes and workshops that I made available for like super low accessible investments, which I'm so grateful to offer, that literally address exactly what you just offered, what you just, initiated. Abundance mindset, magnetic marketing, using your sexual energy to amplify your creativity and sense of flow in life, mastering your feminine and masculine energetics, healing your inner child. I mean, I have so much in there. So if you'd like to have a little taste of some of my work, that's a really great place to start.
if you had to say choose one for the person that I described there, um, what's that one? Because it sounds like you
I
have
would say,
quite a bit.
yeah, well, all of it really, but I would say start with the workshop I just posted, which is from the first week of my Divinity Codes program, which is currently live. And it's the feminine and masculine energetics training. It's really, really powerful in helping you to understand some of the unconscious ways in which you are maybe giving your power away and not feeling fully vital or vibrant or focused in your creativity at optimal capacity. And it's profound. I'm very proud of it. It's like an hour-long workshop. There's some really deep dive questions for you to reflect on and support yourself in doing some deep healing and transformation work.
That's amazing. And the last point I'll make is just in how you're sharing the programs that you offer. I think it's pretty clear that you have this great sense of confidence and belief in what you do and the power that it can have. So I think I just would
Mm,
like to point out there that
thank you.
if you can create something that you believe so strongly in, that you can speak to it with that sort of confidence, then the magic's about to happen.
Game over. Done.
There it is. Cindy,
I
thank
just
you again.
create I just create what's fun, for anyone listening, it's like, can you find like unlocking your zone of genius is about like finding what brings you the most joy. And let's do a whole other podcast about this because I have so much to share with you about this. It's so important for people to start having fun and playing and being in their genius. And then anything you create is just a simple joy. And of course, you believe in it because it's charged up with pure love.
Mhm. I love it. I would love to do that future episode with you. I definitely will.
Perfect.
All right, great. Cindy, again, I'll say it again. Thank you. It was amazing having you here. I guess I'll see you in Bali.
Beautiful, my love. Thank you.
Take care. That is it for my interview with Sydney Campos, Ascenders. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I definitely enjoyed having this conversation with Sydney. Again, she's definitely an inspiring individual and she's doing amazing work. And the one thing that I'll throw in there at the end as well is that I know there's a lot of people out there that are feeling this call to do light work and do work in this sort of space and field. And there's definitely, and it's understandable that this is here, but I've seen a lot of hesitation in people moving into something like this because they don't feel like they can experience abundance and make a living doing this kind of work. And I think Sydney's the perfect example of someone that is showing that it's definitely possible, more than possible, to live a abundant life while doing this sort of work and impacting lives in this amazing way. So I do think I'll probably have Sydney on for a future episode to talk more about that side of things. But I do hope you guys enjoyed the conversation that we had. I think this is where it begins. Stepping in your truth and being who you came here to be is the way in which we unfold our purpose, and we come into this world in a way that we're bringing our highest to it. So, and then of course the last couple things before you guys go: if you're not yet a member of the Ascenders Facebook community and this is the type of content and energy that you resonate with, I am confident that you are the type of energy that we want brought to that group, and I know you'll resonate with those of us that are already there, actively involved with community. So again, you can find that group at togetherweascend.com/community. And then the last thing, if you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to support the podcast, I would love to have you give us an honest review on iTunes, which you can do at togetherweascend.com/iTunes. I would definitely appreciate that. It really helps me out in getting this podcast and content to more and more people, which ultimately my hope is to do so that more people can be inspired and uplifted by the podcast. So anyways, that will be it for this episode of Ascenders. If you do want to find the show notes to the episode, you can find that at togetherweascend.com/awaken14. But again, that will be it for this episode. I do want to thank you for watching or listening wherever you're coming from, and until the next time, keep ascending.